Journalists need one more tool. They've relied for years on interviews, observation, but with the increasing complexity of public policy problems and issues, there's a lot of information out there that can inform reporting on these particular matters. I think it's very difficult for the journalism student, for example, to do this. It doesn't mean that they won't get an assignment and can't think, well, in this particular case, boy, I can inform this story if I go and look at this article or dig into this literature or study that government report. I mean, I can really deepen this piece and make it a much better piece if I do that. The problem with any of these kind of one-shot things is that it doesn't become a habit. And that's why journalism education, I think, has to build knowledge more thoroughly into the curriculum. If you come out of a journalism school and a story presents itself and you don't think about doing an interview, you probably didn't go to journalism school, because that's so deeply ingrained in the training. Or if what happened is in the vicinity, that you wouldn't go out and observe the scene. And again, that's really deeply ingrained in the training. So they become second nature. They become just part of the way that the journalist, when looking at a story possibility, thinks about how to gather the material that will inform the story. That cannot be said at this time about knowledge, in part because the journalism programs do not teach their students on an ongoing daily basis to tap into the knowledge base that can inform a story. But once you have that built into the curriculum, then it becomes second nature. And then you don't have to remind yourself. It's simply part of the process of creating a news story and doing it well. I think one of the things that Journalist Resource can do for reporters is to make this kind of reporting easier. Good public policy reporting can be some of the most difficult journalism. Because usually there's layers of complexity. There's a whole question of kind of what evidence is relevant evidence, what evidence is reliable evidence, how do I bring essentially the best thinking to bear on this particular issue. And that can be very difficult for the reporter who's a general assignment reporter who's covering this issue today and a totally different issue tomorrow. And and there to have a site, and we're not the only site that's trying to do this, but to have a place where they can go, where they have pretty high level of confidence that if there's a study that relates to their story, that in fact it's really a reliable, dependable study, and if they use it in the story, they're not going to get hung out to dry by the critics. And so I think this is a two-way street. I think journalists have to inform themselves, become better students of what they report on an ongoing basis, dig into literatures, dig into groups, sources that they don't ordinarily think about. It's a very long-term effort to really become an informed reporter, let's say on financial markets or the global commodity market, any of these things. They're not one-day studies, right? So the journalist has to change the way they think about what their profession means, and knowledge has to be a larger part of it. On the other hand, I think sources like Journalist Resource can help not only that deeply experienced practitioner, because sometimes there's an angle to a story that breaks that they hadn't thought about, considered before, and then that kind of information is extremely valuable. But for the general assignment reporter, how to cut through all the information that's out there today and get to the real nugget that's good information that relates quite closely to the story, to provide that service, I think can be an enormous help to journalists.